Hello there.
I'm Mr. Ball, your digital chemistry teacher, and today I will be explaining ions and their charges. Before we begin, let's review some background information, starting with the basics of periodic tables. Within a periodic table, there are elements organized into horizontal rows called periods. There are 7 periods, and vertical columns called groups or families.
The groups can be classified as numbers 1 through 18 or classified in the group A or B style.
There are 18 groups in total.
Now, onto the elements themselves. The atomic number can be found in the top of the elements box. This represents the number of protons and electrons in an element.
The number of protons and electrons is always the same, unless it is an ion.
Ions have different numbers of electrons and protons, resulting in a positive or negative charge. Some elements have general charges depending on what group they are in. Noble gases are always 0. Let's use a dot diagram to display the number of protons and electrons in an atom of carbon.
Electrons will be represented in blue, protons in green.
As you can see, there is an equal 6 of each.
Now, take some time to try to figure this first question out on your own. How many electrons does the atom of carbon lose or gain to have a charge of positive 3?
Did you figure it out yet?
The atom of carbon loses 3 electrons in order to have a positive charge of 3.
You may be asking, but Mr. Ball, why does it lose electrons when the charge is positive?
Well, more protons which are positive and less electrons which are negative equals a positive charge.
In order for this ion to become positively charged, it must lose 3 electrons. As you can see, it has 3 more protons than electrons.
Don't worry if you thought it gained 3 negatively charged electrons. This is a common mistake.
It even took me a while before I got used to not associating the plus with gain and minus with lose. And I know you're probably thinking about how having to draw this circle every time is gonna be such a tedious and boring process. While it does make it easier as you get the hang of it, you can begin to use a process which I like to call a shortcut. Let's take calcium as an example. This atom has 20 protons. Together, let's make it into an ion with a negative charge of 2. Remember, in order for an ion to have a negative charge, it must gain electrons.
Learn to associate the minus with gaining and the plus with losing.
Think of the opposite of what you typically expect in math. Remember how we wanted more positives for a positive charge? Now it's the opposite.
More negatives equals a negative charge.
Since our charge is negative 2, we know we have to gain 2 electrons. Now our number of protons and electrons is different. We have 22 electrons and only 20 protons.
Now, let's reverse the process. Let's take this atom of iron for our next example.
You can see the atomic number in the upper left corner.
I will ask you a question and give you some time to think about what the answer is. What is the charge of iron after losing 4 electrons?
Time's up. Share with the class what you think the answer is. If you don't want to share, I don't care. I'm just Mr. Ball. If you said positive 4, you're right.
Now, let me explain why for those who didn't quite nail the process just yet.
As you can see, if he has 26 protons and 26 electrons. Since we want a positive charge, we need to get rid of those electrons.
Now, we only have 22 electrons, but we still have 26 protons.
Obviously, you know that 26 minus 22 equals positive 4. This leaves us with a positive charge of 4 on our ion. So, overall, what did we learn? Today, we learned that ions have specific charges according to the ratio of protons and electrons within the ion. An ion with a positive charge has more protons, and a negative ion has more electrons.
We learned how to figure out how to determine the charge and how to make a neutral atom into an ion. And one fun fact before I go.
Did you know that ions are used every single day in our electronics?
When we charge our phones, the battery contains ions that gain electrons.
When your phone begins to die, it loses electrons. Have a good one.